so much. Thank you. Everybody's in good shape after the cocktail party last night. I enjoyed that. Had a chance to meet so many nice people and new people that I hadn't met before. This is a great opportunity for all of us to be together, labor, management, talking about the issues that confront us. I don't think any of us have ever seen what's going on in America today, the war on workers and the problems that we face everywhere. And these are the problems I want to talk about this morning. First of all, just as a little background, I'm General President of the Teamsters Union. We have 1.4 million members, and we are basically A to Z, airline pilots to zookeepers. Some people think we're just truck drivers. We do everything. When you see that UPS guy out there delivering your packages, we have 270,000 people at UPS, and we're negotiating that contract right now. So we are really an international union in Canada, Puerto Rico, and everywhere else. And that's the challenge we have, to make sure that union lives on and to be strong, and that's what we're trying to do today. So these are the kind of challenges we face. As we said, it's an odd time right now, an unusual time, because this is 2013. My father was born in 1913, so the Teamsters are celebrating the centennial, 100 years. We've put out a book. We're basically talking to our members and celebrating his life and his contribution, to our union. My father really put the Teamsters Union on the map. He was the most famous labor leader probably of the half century. And that is what we're celebrating. But something else comes to mind. When you start talking about what's going on in America today, in preparation, for the centennial, I was interviewed by a major magazine. And this was a reporter talking to me, and he was talking about my father's contribution and what I've done and what the Teamsters do, and talking about the war on workers, and I was talking about the war on workers. And he asked an interesting question. And he said, what would your father think if he was here today or came back today? And I can only tell you one thing: he would be shocked. I think we should all be shocked about the progress, the lack of progress that we have not made since 1975. He left us 38 years ago, 1975. Just think about that. And how have we done in that period of time? And I got news for you: we're not doing very well. Everybody thought we would be much farther along, that we would be much more of a progressive society, that we would have fair tax laws, that we would be moving ahead at a much rapid rate. And guess what? I don't see it happening. I don't see any of those things happening right now. We had deregulation. My dad didn't see that coming. 1979, Jimmy Carter. Remember the deregulation? Going to make everything wonderful today. Basically, what it did to the trucking industry, which is the backbone of our union, we lost 500,000 members because of deregulation. Over 1,000 employers went out of business, and our membership went from 2 million to 1.5 just because of deregulation. And it was also in the airline industry. Everybody fly the airlines. Are they any better? I mean, we're down to, 4 carriers? It cost me $800 to fly from Detroit to Washington, D.C. Is that deregulation? I don't think so. And all you run into the same problem. So these are the kind of things everybody said, well, deregulation will be so good. It hasn't worked. And what it does, it's concentrated, power in the hands of a few companies, bankruptcies one after the other, from Eastern Airlines to American Airlines to United Airlines. And what do? They wipe out people's pension. They wipe out what people have had. They wipe out contracts. How is that progress? But that is what this deregulation has been. I think my dad would be shocked, as I'm shocked, that in 1970s we were 27%. The union labor movement was 27% of the workforce. We're down to about 11, 12% right now. And we're fighting. I don't think it's anything that we're doing. We're working hard. Organized labor is working very hard. But these are hard times. And we talk about the people. Who are the champions? Who are the people that we really talk about that we think are great? Sometimes people talk about, remember Henry Ford in the 20s when he said, I'm going to pay my people a $5 a day. It was unheard of at the time. And people said, $5 a day? And he says, yes, I'll pay them $5 a day, so they have enough money to buy my cars. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Kind of makes sense to have people have buying power that makes our country strong. There was a time, and a lot of us remember the time that our sons and daughters could go to work at a company where maybe their father worked. if you worked, for an airline, that your son or daughter could follow you there, or a trucking company, or a manufacturing company, or General Motors. I'm from Detroit. It used to be that a father or grandfather worked at Ford, and the son and daughter could follow them. No more. Those jobs are gone. And instead, the workforce is so much smaller now. So basically, what I'm getting at is that somebody has stolen the American dream. And I think we all remember that in the 70s, there was a time that, there was basically what I call a social contract, that people talked about the fact that, there is a contract, because if you work hard, we were taught, if you worked hard and you were loyal to your employer and you came to work every day and you did a good job, that you'd be rewarded, that you'd have good pay, that you'd have health care, that you'd have a pension, you could live a good life, that you could raise your kids, you could have a home, and maybe send your kids to college. Well, that dream's gone now. Somebody has torn up the American dream, and it really started in the 70s. And I think this is what we should focus about, is where we're at today, and what people who would, if my father came back today, or what all of us should be talking about, what's changed? I'm recently reading a book right now called Who Stole the American Dream? And it really talks about what's going on there, that the real renaissance came, that somewhere in the 70s and 80s, American business says, we're going to start screwing workers. We're going to start fighting back. We're not going to put up with this. We're going to take back government. We're going to do all these things that help businesses. And basically, they introduce what's called a predatory capitalism that goes after workers, goes after everybody. And so we see the Chamber of Commerce, we see the National Manufacturing Association, we see the Business Roundtable. All of a sudden, they're so active. Since that time, we see the Cato Institute, the American Enterprise Institute. These are all one part of the so-called, well, I call it the vast right-wing conspiracy. We see the Fox News, the Rush Limbaughs, out there every day talking how bad workers are, how bad this is, how bad that is. Even, I have to laugh at this, the National Manufacturers Association set up a committee on a union-free environment. Does that sound good? I mean, what are they talking about, a union-free environment? I thought we were all trying to get along. And that was the old idea of unions and companies getting along, negotiating a contract, having a fair existence. Well, that's out the window right now. And you see what's happened. These have been hard times since 1979, let's say, when Jimmy Carter was president. Remember, I was there. Labor worked their tail off to get him elected. And we had a Democratic president, a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and we were going to get labor law reform to get fairness so we can go out and organize. That was the idea. And guess what we got? Zip. We did not get labor law reform. Okay, well, you say, well, that's terrible. Well, maybe we'll try again. Well, Bill Clinton gets elected. We worked very hard to get Bill Clinton elected. And remember, we had out there striker replacement. That was the law. We are going to get striker replacement. We talked to Bill Clinton. This is going to happen. We're going to do all this. We got a Democratic president, Democratic House, Democratic Senate. What could go wrong? We didn't get it. So then, fast forward to Barack Obama. We work hard to get Barack Obama elected in 2008. What's the biggest thing we talked about? EFCA, Employee Free Choice Act. This would level the playing field so we could start organizing, so we wouldn't be 11%, that maybe we can go out and get fairer, quicker elections, where there wasn't this intimidation of workers. That was the idea with Barack Obama. But guess what? Again, we delivered. Labor delivered. Barack Obama, a Democratic president, a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate. Guess what? We didn't get EFCA. Well, things are going pretty bad. But you would think, okay, that's pretty bad. What happened? But what did the businesses get? Well, in the same period of time, what do we see? All of a sudden, we see NAFTA, CAFTA, China trade agreements, things that have gutted the American workforce. We see jobs going overseas. I always say that, the employers got NAFTA and CAFTA, and the workers got the SHAFTA. I mean, it's pretty clear. No one thinks these are good ideas. And the answer is, it's hemorrhaging jobs left and right. I can tell you stories about, companies that the Teamsters have, and I know the UAW, I know every union in this office here or this place could tell me stories about plants that have closed that they know about. We had a company called Oral-B. You remember the toothbrush? We had 300 people in Iowa working away, making money. People worked there, and that was one of those places where the daughters and sons could go to work there. It was a small community. Everything made sense. It was a good, hard-working workforce. They were dedicated to Oral-B. One day they just closed it down, moved it to Mexico. All those people lost their job. We had another place called Mr. Coffee. Remember Mr. Coffee, Joe DiMaggio? That was a Teamster company. One day they decided, we're going to move that to Mexico. 300 jobs lost in Cleveland. The same thing with another company called Square D. We had a place, 400 people, making these boxes, electrical boxes. I was there. I went to the plant. And these people made these boxes for years, and people could work there, the same thing. The family worked there, hardworking, they had health care, a pension. One day they decided, we're going to close this place down. And of course the union said, well, wait a minute, we're making money, you're making money, what's the problem? Oh, we can do it cheaper in Mexico. That's what's going on. And that is what's going on today. And one footnote to the Square D story was that the company said, you know, now that we've moved these factories and all these machinery to Mexico, the Mexicans don't know how to run it. We want you to go down and train them. Of course, we did not do that. But I'm just saying how ridiculous this is, that they basically do these things, they don't think ahead, and then they want us to go down and train them to take our jobs. So, and you know, we talk about the Henry Fords, you know, but the new people they're talking about that we saw in the 90s and the 2000s and 2010 are the Al Dunlaps. Remember Al Dunlap, the Chainsaw Al? Remember him, Sunbeam? This guy cost thousands and thousands of jobs, and he became an icon of big business. This is how to be big business today. Beat up workers. Send the jobs to Mexico. That's the new model today. That's not the model that I saw. That's not the American dream. The same thing with Jack Welch. Remember you always see Jack Welch, crazy Jack Welch? He's always on television. This guy's a billionaire. And he was the guy that basically sent out a letter to everybody that said, if you're going to do business with General Electric, we want lower bids. We want you to close your factories in America and move to Mexico. We have that letter. That's the thinking of these people. Walmart, the same way. Walmart sent out a letter to all their suppliers. We want cheaper bids, move to Mexico, move to China. We don't care where you go, we want it cheaper. So these are shocking things that I don't think anybody ever saw. When my father was around, you know, in the 70s and 80s, it used to be that the ratio between CEO pay and the average worker was 40 times. Today, it's over 365 times. That's the ratio between pay of the average CEO and the average worker. That's something wrong with that. And probably the best one I've ever seen is Walmart. Lee Scott is the CEO. He made $17.5 million. That's 900 times what the average worker makes. So we see this wage disparity happening here. Not only are jobs leaving America, not only are we going backwards, not only are we championing this predatory capitalism, but we see, you know, what's going on. The labor force is going down. We're getting weaker. And how do we fight back? A recent study showed that the United States has some of the largest wage disparity anywhere in the world, that we rank down there with Turkey and Chile and Mexico with regard to wage disparity. And that's not right. Not good for, you know, our society. And we've got to do something about that. In talking about this, I was looking at some of the things that, there was an article in Newsweek magazine in the 90s, interesting article. And the article, it was a front page story, I wish I brought it here. It talked about hitmen, who the hitmen were. And it went by and talking about how people, even in the 90s they were talking about this, eliminating jobs, that was the new thing. Oh, we're just going to get rid of people, get rid of American workers. The work went somewhere. It went offshore. It went somewhere else. And it talked about that IBM, Lou Gerstner, he laid off 60,000 people. This is the Newsweek magazine. That Sears Roebuck, Ed Breen, laid off 50,000 people. Boeing, a guy named Frank Schraff, laid off 28,000. Digital Equipment, 20,000. General Motors, 74,000. And is there a day that goes by that you don't pick up the Wall Street Journal? What do you see in there? Oh, Bank of America laying off 10,000 people. Citicorp laying off 5% of its workforce. How can this be? How can that many people not be working? And yet, it goes on right now. I know people that work at some of the big corporations right now. I have a friend of mine that works, and he tells me there used to be 20 people in his department. And he says now there's 7. The same amount of work, he's working 70 hours a week to keep his job. The work hasn't gone away. There's just less people doing it, and he's working 78 hours a day or a week. And he says, I'm here Saturday, I'm here Sunday, and if I don't come in, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. So that's the problem that we see. So the question is, what do we do about all this? What's the answer to all this? I think we all know the problem, but finding an answer is even harder. I mean, because we've got to reverse this trend. We cannot keep going on this way if we're going to be a successful country right now. So we've got to start turning this around. I thought that the recent election, the 2012 election with Mitt Romney, was probably one of the most interesting things that ever happened. Not only was it a battle royal of them versus organized labor, the progressive movement, but it was a battle that I think we all watch with interest because, instead of coming out to say we want to make America stronger, what did he talk about? I mean, when you cut through all the things about the pageantry at the convention and the family stories, you got down to this. Basically, what did he want to do? No, he wanted national right to work. That was one of the things on their platform. National right to work. It's never been in their platform before. And it shows you how the Republican Party and all the people that support them are moving to the right. They're not coming to us. They're not saying, why can't we sit down and work this thing out? They're moving to the right. And remember Social Security? I know a lot of people on Social Security. Guess what? They like it. They like that check coming. They've worked hard. And basically, many people, that's all they have to live on. And what happens? He wants to privatize that. He's brought that thing up again. It's like we're back fighting FDR. Basically want to repeal the New Deal. He basically wants to get rid of Medicare. I know a lot of people on Medicare, guess what? They like it. They like the fact that they can go get medical care, that they can get their hip replaced. And they won't have $500,000 for a medical bill, but the government takes care of it. And they wanted to end Medicaid. They thought food stamps, too many food stamps, the poor are eating too much. We got to cut unemployment. I mean, we can't have all these benefits. These are the things they ran on, and they wonder why they lost. What were they thinking? Did people want those things? And the most famous thing was the famous 47% clip. We all saw that, didn't we? Where basically he says, 47% of the people in America, they really want handouts. They're mooches. I had more fun with this when I campaigned for Obama through Michigan, Wisconsin, because I would go to a bunch of workers and say, you guys mooches out there? What are you thinking about when he says something like that? That 47% of the people really want a handout and they don't want to work. That's so untrue, and it shows how out of contact these people are with regard to what's going on in America. It's unbelievable that this could be going on. And the other thing I always say is, I'm sure glad that Mitt Romney didn't win, because he's so anti-labor that if he had won, we wouldn't be at the Diplomat, all you labor guys. We'd all be at Guantanamo. Swear to God. That's right. Son of a bitch, that's what he wanted to do. So how do we fix this? And what's the other thing that happened? Citizens United, the Supreme Court case that basically opened the floodgates to every whack job who's got money to put money into campaigns. Who's ever seen anything like that? When we have people like the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson, Sheldon Adelson owns the Phoenician in Las Vegas. We all know that place. That 2 or 3 people put more money into campaigns than all of organized labor. That can't be right. That they basically tilted this to the Karl Roves, the Grover Norquist, these super PACs everywhere out there, putting together huge amounts of money, 300 million, 400 million, amounts of money we've never seen before. And basically saying, this is what we've got to do, and we're going to turn this around. Well, we fought that battle, and we were able to go out, and when we talked and we did everything to fight and to win for Barack Obama, and we won by 5 million, which is a landslide. That was big. But we also said that they might got more money, and they do. They outspend us 10 to 1, 20 to 1. But we have organized labor, the progressive movement. We have boots on the ground. We have the votes. They've got the money. So when we get those people to the polls, we can win, and we just did. But it shows the dichotomy of what's going on in America right now. And the interesting thing was, when it was all over with, the people were talking about, well, why did the Republicans were talking about, well, why did we lose? And the answer was, we weren't right-wing enough. We weren't far enough to the right. Mitt Romney wasn't a good messenger. And they really think that that's the message. And they're gearing up for 14. They're gearing up for 16 to do it again. Sheldon Adelson said, you think I spent money in 12? You ain't seen nothing yet. I'm going to spend twice that amount to defeat unions and to make sure we put Republicans in. That's what he said in a statement. So, it's amazing what's going on in this country right now. And the answer is, if you think that the election settled anything. The right wing didn't think it was, they're like ignoring the election, like it didn't happen. They're saying, well, the election's over with, now we're going to keep on attacking. And here they come again, going after us again, going to go out to try and suppress the vote, to change the electoral college, to do everything they can to rig it so they can win. That's what's going on in America. So what do we do about all this? I don't have all the answers. I could go on forever. I think many of you watched the President's State of the Union address on Tuesday, and he outlined a plan, what we've got to do to start getting jobs back in this country, to put Americans to work, to bring the jobs back from Mexico and China and wherever else, and bring them back here. That's what he's talking about, and he's right on that. We've got to change the tax code, to make it fairer for all of us. Right now, we have companies like Chevron and General Electric and Pfizer that are billion-dollar companies that don't pay any taxes at all. Well, I pay my taxes. I bet everybody in here pays taxes. Well, how can General Electric not pay taxes? In fact, they got a rebate. They got a rebate. That's got to be changed. Everybody said, well, we don't have any money for all these social programs. Well, damn it, if they paid their fair share, we'd have plenty of money. We'd have plenty of money. That's what we've got to do. The other thing we've got to talk about is, you read what I read. You read the Wall Street Journal. You read the newspapers. And you realize that, they admit it, there are trillions of dollars in profit that are sitting offshore. Trillions. I don't mean, that's a T. And it's sitting out there, and they're not bringing it back because if it comes back, it'll get taxed. Oh, really? That's a real problem. So these people that make money overseas, the big corporations like Pfizer that have trillions of dollars parked in banks and places from the Cayman Islands to Ireland to wherever, they have money just sitting out there. I think it's a plan. We ought to have a tax code to say, okay, guys, we're going to let you bring it back. We're going to let you bring it back, and we're going to give you a break in the taxes, but you can't use it for yourself. You can't use it to buy your dividends. You can't pay higher dividends. You've got to invest in America, put Americans back to work, build factories, put people back, invest in America. If we did that, we could bring those trillions of dollars back. That's a beginning. That's a beginning. That's a beginning. And Citizens United, we have to pass a law to change this cancer that's come upon us, where we have a handful of people that have more money than all of us together, that are putting more money into these campaigns, basically tilting the thing, going into small races. They're spending $30 million on a state rep race, in some town. That's actually happening. That's how much money they have. We've got to pass a law to say Citizens United is not right, and basically limit people to $5,000, something reasonable. That will basically make it fair for everybody. We can't have some people having more power than the rest of us. That's got to be done, and got to be done back. And you read about Apple Computer. Apple Computer's got $100 million, 120, billion. And the article says they don't know what to do with the money. They just can't figure out what to do with the money. And people are starting to sue them, and they're saying, it's not right to have that kind of money. Are you going to buy something? Well, I don't know what we're going to do with it. They can't figure it out. Well, damn it, why don't they just invest in America and start making those Apple computers in California again? Let's get people back to work. How hard is that? They got all this money, put it to work. So we've got so much, and then, the same thing with the tax code. We talk about, Mitt Romney admitted he only paid 13%. Well, I paid a hell of a lot more than that. And I bet you paid more than that, too. Talk about Warren Buffett. Remember what he said? He said, I got a lower rate than my secretary. That's not right. And the other thing is, we've got to change the trade laws. The trade laws are completely, don't let anybody tell you that NAFTA is working, because I just told you about all the companies that are down there. You want to see the American jobs where they're at? Go to Mexico. You want to go see where people are investing? Go to Mexico. Go to the call centers in India. Go to China, where Apple Computer has 500,000 people at a company called Foxconn building Apple computers and basically iPads. And what we've got to do is to change the tax laws and basically change the trade law. Everybody in Washington's got it wrong. They just want trade agreements after trade agreements, but they don't do anything. They don't open markets. So what do we see? I always talk about this one. There's a boat that comes into Philadelphia that comes from Korea with Korean cars on it. The cars are made in Korea. It goes all the way around, and it comes in and these cars drive off. These are made in Korea, and that's just an example. There is no other car, there is no boat from America with American-made cars going over there. We've got to make it so they buy American products, whether it's Japan, whether it's whatever, South Korea. We've got to make sure we start selling American products. That's what we got to do. And that will work. We got to do it. And we got to start thinking about Buy America. You know, I drive an American car. We got to start thinking about that. It's amazing that in so many of the laws that we have on the books right now, and federal laws, whether it's the Pentagon or whether it's state, it says you must buy American. What's the biggest thing that lobbyists try and get rid of for these big corporations? The Buy American provision. Okay, you shouldn't have that in there. We shouldn't buy American. We want to be able to buy from anywhere else. You want to know why? Because they moved their facility to some place in Egypt somewhere or Manila so that they can make it there and bring it back. They want to take that out, and our job is to make sure we buy American and keep that in our laws, and we can do that. But you know, I guess this is all about fairness, and it's all about the progressive movement, and it's about where are we going to be? What would my father think if he came back? And you know, I would think he'd be shocked like I'm shocked. We're not doing well. We're fighting the right wing. We won this last election, but nobody can say that we're doing well with regard to labor laws, with regard to organizing. I mean, we're working very hard. The union is organizing. We're doing okay, but we should be doing much better. If we had EFCA, we would be growing. And you know what? Who basically is out there to make sure that we have an equality or a middle class? It's the American labor movement. We're out there fighting every day to make sure people get fair wages. And we're not seeing that right now. I was talking to somebody recently who was trying to organize Nissan. And he says, it's really interesting when you go to Nissan down in wherever they're at, Tennessee or whatever. He said, people walk around with different badges on. I said, really? Tell me about that. Oh, he says, yeah. He says, if you got a brown badge, you're an independent contractor. So you can't go in the gym, and you just work. And then you're not really an employee, but you work there just right next to the other people. And the other guy's got a green badge. Well, he's an employee. And there's more brown badges than there are green badges. Try and organize that place. That's what's going on at these transplants. Everybody said, isn't it great that they're building a factory somewhere? I don't think so. You know, you talk about, Kia built $1 billion plant in Texas. Big article, $1 billion invested in Texas. Well, you know how many people are going to put to work there? Maybe 1,000. It's completely automated. You go in there, you don't see anybody. There's nobody there. You go walk in, all you see is machines going back and forth. That's not the American dream. We need to have jobs, real jobs in America. So, you know, I don't have all the answers, but I think this type of a conference is good, where we get management and labor together to start talking about equality. How do we bring back the American dream? Somebody stole the American dream, and you know what? Let's go find it and let's bring it back. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Will you take a few questions?
Sure. Good.
As you know, the core of this conference is about the back and forth and the give and take, and Mr. Hoffa has kindly said that he takes some questions or comments from the audience. We have two folks out there to help out in that regard. Let's see how we can tap his insights. Any questions out there?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Good.
Jim, I'm over here.
Where you at?
Tom Ackle. You've been talking about this for years. Loads of other people have been talking about this for years. Obviously, the win in November was successful because labor really had feet on the ground and an organizational capability that blew away Romney with all of his rhetoric and all the other nonsense that he articulated. But how do we now take this? And what I see in the work that I do with so many different unions is that everybody's got an interest that's unique to their industry, and so they're looking for crumbs from Congress to solve whatever the issue is in their industry, when we should be forming a coalition that is so damn strong, and we're looking for the whole loaf and not just for crumbs for each and every, whether it's the maritime industry, the trucking industry, the building trades industry, the service employees industry, et cetera. How do we get people to step up if we're really going to address the issues, and you've articulated in a very substantive way the issues that have to be addressed? How do we get people together to do that?
Well, I agree. I mean, the problem is we get crumbs. I mean, we go out and work so hard, and, you know, all the members of Congress and all of us back, all of us know, you're from your own state, we know the congressmen, we know the senators. When do we see them? When it comes election time. They want money, they want this, they want that, but they don't deliver for us. You know, how is it that we have a Democratic president, a Democratic House, a Democratic everything, and we can't get things like EFCA? That is the problem. We're just, you know, we're taken for granted, and we've got to be tougher. We've got to be more streamlined, and you're right, Tom. We have to do a better job of not getting, we have to be, number one, united. Don't be pieced off by some of these politicians, and stay united, and put the pressure on them to say, you know, stop the talk. You've got to deliver for the American labor movement and the American worker. That's what we've got to do. Tom, you're right on. We've got to make sure we do that. Any other questions? Well, thank you. It's been a great honor to be here. I've truly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the additional speakers. Thank you very much. Thank you.